I don't know that those gaps can be bridged. And it may be that at the end of the day, we come out here and everybody says, well, you know, we have some honest disagreements. But I'd like to make sure that this discussion is actually a discussion and not just us trading talking points.
Our view, with all respect, is that this is a car that can't be recalled and fixed and that we ought to start over.
Breaking news, healthcare reform still unsolved.
Yeah, the car has started. We'll see where we get. Top Line starts right now.
Hello and welcome to ABCNews.com's Top Line. I'm David Chalian.
And I'm Rick Klein.
Each weekday we're bringing you the latest political headlines, reporting, insight, analysis, everything you need and want to know about politics.
And it's twitter.com/thenote where we're live tweeting the hearings except for this 15 minutes where you have our undivided attention.
So you have to live tweet the hearings.
Right. That's right. Let us know what we missed.
Get us started. What's your top line?
Summit Day. We are underway at the biggest political day in the history of the universe. Or maybe not. We don't know what's going to come out of this. Actually, we have a pretty good idea what's going to come out of this, and it's not going to be big bipartisan health care reform unless all the pundits are wrong. Really, I think the view from this summit is what's down the road. And knowing that we're going to see some kind of a reconciliation package in all likelihood from Democrats, this is about laying the groundwork for all the maneuvering that's about to happen.
On both sides. It is laying the groundwork for Republicans to push back, saying they're still trying to jam something through. We tried to talk sense into the president. And for the Democrats, it's laying the groundwork of we did our best to reach out and we've got to move forward. The priority's too great. You're right. We know what this is going to result in. Opening move, though, I have to say, one thing that I was very impressed with today was Lamar Alexander's opening gambit here. The Republicans allowed sort of the southern, smooth, genteel Tennessean, former cabinet member, former governor, twice presidential candidate, to sort of take his credibility, right, and speak for the Republican caucus and say up front, Mr. President, scrap it all, and let me tell you something, on process, on reconciliation, you should agree to get rid of that right now or the rest of the day is irrelevant. It was a bold opening move.
Yeah, and it's a powerful political argument to make. I think it caught the president off guard for a moment. He didn't answer immediately. He went over to Nancy Pelosi, and then he came back to it. Of course, reconciliation will be on the table.
He said, let's put process to the side right now. Let's focus on
just for a moment. We look for unexpected things. We like those things. Plan B, even as talk swirls about reconciliation and this big sweeping package that could pass Congress, there is new news to report about a potential slimmed-down package. The Wall Street Journal has some details of this. The White House pushing back on this story, saying that is not the plan, but clearly there are backup options that are being addressed. President Obama asked on the way in whether he has a plan B. He said, I've always got a plan, which is good to know.
Quintessential Obama, right? And finally, Patterson's problem. Yes, the New York Times reports today about David Patterson's aide in an alleged domestic abuse case and whether or not the state police acted improperly in trying to make this case go away. And Rick, as you know, the Times reports that one of the key moments is when Patterson actually has a phone call with the woman who is the alleged abuse victim and sort of says, I'm here for you if you need anything, in what looks like an apparent attempt to try to assuage this complaint. This is his top and closest aide, and obviously this is just a terrible day for David Patterson. Listen, he was never going to, I don't think, ever going to be the Democratic nominee for governor of New York anyway. This might speed up that process, but he was never going to be the Democratic nominee.
That's just it. The timing is very difficult for him because this is when he tries to get a little bit of traction back into his candidacy.
Not going to happen. Of course, it's all about the healthcare summit, and we are happy to be joined by the chairman of the House Republican Conference, Mike Pence, Republican of Indiana, joining us from up on Capitol Hill. So, Congressman, I'm sure you've been watching a lot of this as we have been watching it. It does seem that the president's main agenda item here is to try to focus on areas of policy or at least goal-oriented agreements that both sides can have, even if you're not quite in agreement about how to get there. Do you see some room for agreement coming out of this?
Well, look, I don't know. You know, when the president announced this so-called summit a couple of weeks ago on television, he said the idea was to find those areas where there could be agreement. But I haven't heard the president agree on anything yet. I haven't heard the Democrats agree on anything yet. I mean, Lamar Alexander opened up with a very strong statement of not where Republicans are, but where the American people are, and that is that they want to see us do away with the government takeover of health care that passed the Senate, passed the House, and that the president unveiled again Monday, and start from scratch with a clean sheet of paper. The president, however, clearly from the very outset showed up not with that blank sheet of paper we were hoping for. But remarkably, the president went into a long presentation defending his party's approach, his party's bill, and you know, in that sense, I think it's going to limit the possibility of really getting a fresh start out of today's summit.
Congressman, you said over the weekend that it looked like President Obama spelled summit S-E-T-U-P. I'm wondering if there's a word that comes to mind midway through today's session of what you think this one looks like.
Well, it's starting to look like a waste of time, frankly. It looks like the president, after saying he didn't want people just to show up with their talking points and state their positions, he opened up the so-called summit with talking points and stating his position. And then, you know, in the midst of Harry Reid interrupting, Tom Coburn and another Republican was interrupted. You know, look, you know, this is turning out not only to be, you know, this is not good government, but it's also bad TV. I mean, I really, I got to be honest with you guys. If we were serious about this, look, come on. The one broad, and you just said about goals, we can all agree on the goal. The American people want us to take action to lower the cost of health insurance in this country and lower the long-term cost of health care. Everybody agrees on that. But how we get there, or whether we focus on giving the American people more choices, as Republicans are driving in malpractice reform, or whether we give them more government, that the president is continuing to champion at this summit today, is starting to look like a real irreconcilable differences. But I think the big news out of today is on this business of reconciliation. I mean, it is remarkable that Harry Reid said no one has talked about reconciliation. Guys,
Right.
you know better than that. His spokesman 1 week ago said if a decision is made to use reconciliation to advance health care, Senator Reid will work with the White House, the House, and members of his caucus.
Certainly, we've been asking a lot of questions about it, but I want to ask you a question about that, Congressman. Do you think the American people, they do care about sort of the policy that comes out here? They're concerned about too much government spending. They're concerned about their costs going up to perhaps cover other people. I get all that, but do they care about something as arcane as Senate reconciliation and process?
You know, I don't think the American people generally care about process, but I think they care very deeply about the idea that Democrats, having been unable to develop the kind of legislation that would enjoy broad support in the Congress and in the country, are now going to bend the rules of the Senate and ram through Obamacare 2.0 on just 51 votes. I think that's very offensive to the American people. It's never been done. The Senate is not designed, as Lamar Alexander pointed out eloquently, it's not designed to be a majoritarian institution. Senator Barack Obama lamented that very fact just a few short years ago. And so, you know, the reality is I do think the American people will be deeply offended if after this, what's looking more and more like a Democrat infomercial is done, if they throw their hands in the air and say, well, the only thing we can do is just abuse the rules of the legislative process and ram this bill down the throats of the American people. I think they do that, they're going to have a real serious problem with public sentiment and with the elections this fall.
If your take ends up being that this is just a Democratic infomercial, do you think it was a mistake for Republicans to attend, or do you feel like there's some value, at least, in having the discussions?
Look, I think the question of whether Republicans should be going is moot. The question is, where are we going with this whole debate? And judging from what we saw today in the first hour and a half or so, is we're not going much of anywhere. I mean, the only real conclusion to me today so far is that the president, having said he was going to create a forum where he looked for common grounds and looked for the best ideas from both sides, is just using it, and Democrats are using it as a platform to continue to sell a bill that the American people have rejected.
Congressman Mike Pence, Republican of Indiana, thank you very much for being here, sir. We appreciate it.